Hello everyone, Storm here. Today we'll be talking about some severe weather that is ongoing across portions of the Dakotas in Minnesota, but continuing later this evening into the overnight hours. We also got something to talk about in the tropics. There is a tropical wave that's currently ongoing in the main development region. It could develop into a tropical depression or perhaps a tropical storm as well. Before we get started this video, if you guys like radio content, you can subscribe to my channel. We do this stuff here all the time on this channel. We could have updates, maybe. It's not really been that way over the last couple days. Well, several days, I should say. I might post another update. We'll see. But if I do, if you do want more updates or a way to get notifications, be sure to hit that bell notification button, so you will get notifications if I upload a new video as well. We can start with the watch warning advisory display. We got some heat related issues across the south and even across portions of western US. Those are heat advisories in those orange boxes. We have air quality issues for portions of the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, even the portions of the Mid Atlantic. That's what those gray boxes are showing, and most of them are around the larger cities out there as well. So if you live maybe like Cincinnati, Louisville, or even Chicago, you probably have some air quality issues out there as well. There's even some air quality issues in Arizona too. Also, speaking of Arizona, there's actually some flood advisories and flash flood warnings out there. So they're finally getting some rain, which is some good news because the desert Southwest could use some rain. And monsoon season is right around the corner, if not here already. So that's some good news for some of those areas down there as well because they desperately need some rain. Which, speaking of desperately needing some rain, let's actually check out the latest drought monitor. You know, you know what? Here in the eastern U.S., we're getting a tad bit dry out there, especially here in parts of the Ohio Valley where we really haven't been dry over the last couple years, really since the summer of 2020, which that was the last time we actually had a moderate drought in here, and we got it again here in June of 2022. So things are getting dry out here in parts of the East US. So some of us could actually use some rain out there as well. But hopefully it's not a sign that we get into some type of mega drought or anything like that. So hopefully that does not happen. But for right now, the chance of that is kind of low end, but you never know what could potentially happen, especially here in the East US. But it could potentially be a sign of a big drought. We'll see. But areas that desperately need more rain than we do here in the eastern U.S. will be, of course, the western U.S. In those red and dark red colors, that's where you have some extreme drought out there. You can see it covers a lot of real estate out there. And even if you check out the northwestern U.S., parts of Washington, we actually do not have a drought out there. So that's some good news up there as well. All right, that's drought talk out of the way. Let's talk about severe weather. We do have an enhanced risk for severe weather for portions of the Dakotas into northwestern Minnesota. Not really big on the tornado risk. Winter values, they'll be there, but they won't be terribly strong or anything like that. But there will be a lot of instability, which can lead to the potential for damage to winds. Some of it could be significant, even including large hail, which some of that could also be significant as well. And you do have the slight risk that does surround some of those areas. That does include parts of Nebraska as well. Day 2, which is tomorrow, the severe weather risk really backs off. You got a marginal risk from the Texas Panhandle up into northern Illinois. Now, some models do try to hint on a potential cluster of thunderstorms, perhaps over portions of Illinois and Missouri, and they could continue southward overnight. So that'd be something else to watch as well. The potential could be there for some damage to winds within some of those cells. But you can see there within the March risk, the main threat would be damage to winds and hail. There is no tornado risk out there. Wind shear will be pretty darn weak. Pretty daggone weak out there. Day 3, which is Sunday, we got a marginal risk for portions of the Ohio Valley. Very similar situation. High instability, low wind shear type of environment. So, then again, once again, the potential is there for some strong to severe storms, but it will be interesting to see. I think they will extend into March risk farther back to the north, or actually, I should say the southwest, not the northwest, but to the southwest. I think we could see a March risk extension out there as well. Still plenty of time for changes out there, though. Well, let's talk about the current environment up in the parts of the Dakotas and Minnesota. We do have a lot of instability out there currently. Some places are seeing instability values at least 5,000 joules per kilogram. Not over a very large area, but some areas are seeing instability values that high. But it's generally 3,000 plus out there, at least for the most part. Here's your thunderstorm activity currently ongoing in northwestern Minnesota back into parts of South Dakota, and there's even some cells going on in the parts of South Dakota as well. Some of these cells here, especially when they first develop, do have that potential to produce large hail, which if we do check out the large hail parameter, there are some elevated values out there. It's not terribly high, but there are some elevated values out there. Which if you do check out mixed layer Cape here, there are some pretty elevated numbers out there as well, which could also help increase that large hail threat out there as well. But really the main concern with these thunderstorms will be damaging straight-line winds. If you were to check out downdraft Cape, you can see here, generally over 800, conditions are favorable for some strong winds, but when you get deep or well over 1,000, that's where you see that potential for damaging straight line winds. And you can see here, we do have some values that are up as high as 1,400 in some places. So conditions are favorable for some damaging straight line winds. Even check out the level lap rates. There's some pretty good numbers out there too that can also be favorable for some damaging straight line winds. And once again, for wind shear values, they're not terribly strong here, and we're not really expecting a big tornado risk today or anything like that. If you were to check out the tornado parameters, the fixed layer, you can see there are some areas that's a level 2, but you notice here where within the level 2 area, most of the storms are kind of cluster up, so that helps decrease that tornado potential. But once again, the tornado potential is not very high or anything. It's a low end risk, but it's not zero either. So that's another thing to kind of keep an eye on as well. But here's the supercell composite. There's some very elevated numbers out there too when it comes to those supercell composite values out there as well. Let's check out the latest HER model run, the 22Z run. I think it's about done on the 23Z. Yes, it is. So we'll check out the 23Z run from the HER model. You can see here how some of these sources here do cluster up over the next several hours, and when they do, they can produce widespread, strong to potentially damaging winds, and some of it can be significant as well. So that's another thing to monitor as well. And I think that's going to be the primary threat with these storms. There will be damaging line winds, and there could be an isolated QLCS tornado mixed in there as well. If you or a squall line tornado, it's the same thing. Um, so that possibility is also in there as well. So if you do live in the parts of Minnesota, even the parts of South Dakota, definitely stay weather aware over the next few hours or so, because you could potentially see severe weather later this evening, even into the overnight hours as well. So definitely stay weather aware of that. All right, let's go ahead and move on to tomorrow. And tomorrow, you can see here from the high-risk NAM, we're actually going to check out the high-risk NAM for tomorrow because the HER model on Wednesday's event here in the Ohio Valley and in the Mid-Atlantic, it did not do very well. And the model that was actually the closest was the high-risk NAM, interestingly enough. So we'll actually check out the high-risk NAM, which seems like it has a slightly better handle with the high instability and low wind shear environment. At least that's what I've seen over the past few events. So we'll check out the reflectivity on the high-risk NAM. And you can see here what I'm talking about there for a potential cluster. And you can see they're moving across parts of Missouri and Illinois. And it does push southward. And once again, there's not a whole lot of wind shear going on here, but there is a decent amount of instability to kind of work with as well. If you look to the far left side here, there are some instability values that can be up to 4,000 joules per kilogram, but there are some other areas out there where we do not have a whole lot of instability out there. But you do move on to Sunday, which is our next potential severe weather day, or for the potential for strong storms, I should say. There's also, once again, a lot of instability, generally 2 to 3,000, but I'm pretty confident we'll see areas get closer to 4,000. Models over the past couple events have been underestimating instability values, especially for the HER model. HER model's been well underestimating a lot of these instability values. So the hard stamp kind of has a better handle, but even with using the hard stamp that has a better handle with instability values, can still underestimate it. So that's another thing I want to know. But even regardless of that, still a lot of instability out there, generally 2 to 3,000. but I think we'll be generally in the 3 to 4,000 range. And I think I could see areas being that could exceed 4,000. So there's a lot of instability out there. But let's check out some of the ingredients out there. If we were to take Northern Kentucky for a sounding here, and once again, you'll notice there's not much, there won't be a whole lot of wind shear. It's another one of those type of high instability, low wind shear setups. Some cases, not much happens, but in other cases, a lot of stuff could happen. One of those was back on Wednesday. We had a lot of strong, severe storms out there, more than expected, I would say. But it did create a lot of wind damage across parts of the Ohio Valley and the Mid Atlantic back on Wednesday. So, we definitely underestimate that. Could it happen again on Sunday setup? It's pretty unclear, and let me tell you guys why. Comparing Wednesday to um, Sunday severe weather setup. On Wednesday, we had very elevated downdraft cape values. On that day, we had downdraft cape values up to 1,700 or 1,700. That's pretty high when it comes to downdraft cape. Even the low level lap rates was pretty daggone strong, which low level lap rates on that day were up as high as 8.5 and even up to 9 in some places. So it was very elevated, and that was favorable for some very gusty thunderstorms out there, which some of it did produce some damage out there. If you look into this sounding here, particular in Northern Kentucky, downdraft cape is actually up to 16, or I should say 600, and low level lap rates is also weaker than Wednesday severe weather events. So that's why I'm not very confident. Now, another thing is that there is a lot more moisture in this environment, so there's going to be a lot more coverage when it comes to showers and thunderstorms. Probably better coverage of showers and thunderstorms compared to Wednesday. Wednesday, a lot of it's kind of scattered, but I think on Sunday severe weather setup, a lot of these showers and thunderstorms will be more on the numerous side or things. And we could use numerous showers and thunderstorms because we need rain. That's why I was showing the drought map, because some of us could actually use some of this rain. So, and you also notice precipitable water values up to 2 inches or 2.1. So there's a decent amount of moisture out there. You also notice here where your dew point line and temperature line are close together. That's an indication that there's not much dry air out there. There's a lot of moisture out there. So these could actually be some efficient rainfall producers out there. So that's another thing to kind of keep an eye on as well. And once again here, I don't think severe weather-wise on Sunday will be near as bad as Wednesday. But the possibility is still there. We could see some strong storms really anywhere from western Pennsylvania and western New York through a good chunk of Ohio, Kentucky, southern Indiana, even back down into parts of the Texarkana region. Even could see some strong thunderstorms down there as well. So still something to watch for now. Well, we'll wait and see where models kind of trend next over the next day or two. All right, that's severe weather outlay. Let's talk about the tropics. Checking out the National Hurricane Center, and you can see here we do have an area in the main development region. It's not often you see that this time of year. This is something you see in August, not so much in June. So this is kind of unusual here, I would say. But this is a pretty impressive tropical wave. I mean, sometimes it happens here, but it's not very common at all. So they currently have a 60% chance of development in the next 5 days here. Really over the next 40 hours, not really expecting much development. But at least the 5 day period, I think there's a pretty decent chance for some development. This is a pretty impressive tropical wave, like I said earlier. Which if we do check out infrared satellite here, wherever it loads in here, you'll notice here as we kind of go through here on the northern end of the system here, there's a lot of convection out there. So there's a decent amount of moisture where it's at. However, on the southeast side of the system, there's actually a decent amount of wind shear, and you can actually tell from infrared satellite. Some of the clouds in the upper levels are moving to the southwest. Meanwhile, clouds on the lower levels are kind of moving north. So you got a lot of wind shear, at least on the southeast side. Meanwhile, on the northern side of the system, the wind shear is not as bad. You got upper level winds that kind of turn like this, more to the northwest, and in the lower levels, it's kind of southeast, just a little bit. So, not as much wind shear on the northern side compared to the southern side, and that's actually where we have more convection. Where we do have not as much wind shear, we got more convection. Where we have less wind shear, there's not much convection out there at all. There's also some dry air nearby as well, and that can interfere with the system just a little bit. But regardless of that, if we check out some of the model guidance for this system here later down the road, like the intensity guidance from the hurricane models, you know what? Some of the models here are pretty elevated, or actually on the stronger end. I don't think we're going to see a major hurricane out of this. There are several model members that do show that, but you also notice there are some other members that do not get even close to major hurricane strength, more of a low-end tropical storm. And I think I got better confidence with being staying as a tropical storm than a major hurricane. I don't think a major hurricane will happen, but let's check out some other things first before we get kind of too deep into the intensity wise. Because if you do check out some other things here, like the track of the system here, here's the hurricane models. Not all of the hurricane models are in range shows yet, but for right now, they kind of stay on the southern end. Really, there's good confidence until it gets to lesser Antilles. We had some members that kind of turn more north, which if it does turn more north, that's where you can see a stronger storm system. If it were to continue on the southern track, it's more of a weaker system. And we've seen that happen on some of the previous runs. And really, it seems like models are getting into a better agreement in the long range, leaning towards more of the southern end, which will indicate a little bit of a weaker system out there as well. But we're not really locked in just yet. That's at least 5 days out. So there's still plenty of time for changes. So it's pretty important to pay attention to the trends at this point. Well, let's check out the GFS model. So here's our system right here. Right here it is. Higher the numbers or in those yellow, orange, or red shades, that's where we have some stronger wind shear. Where we have those light blue and white colors, that's where we have very weak wind shear. And like what we're seeing here on infrared satellite imagery, you notice here on the southeast side system, that's where we have a decent amount of wind shear. On the north side, where we had that convection, there's no wind shear up there. Little or none, I should say. If we do continue on over the next several days here, here's our system right here, by the way. Still some wind shear on the southeast side, which can interfere with the system just a little bit. But it looks like as it gets closer to lesser Antilles, wind shear values do begin to increase on the north side of the system. But towards the center, the circulation of the system, there's still not much wind shear within the storm. So it still has the possibility to kind of maintain itself, but this could help limit intensification though. With the wind shear being on the north side and on the southeast side system, I think that could help kind of slow down the intensification process or just kind of maintain its strength. It may weaken it a little bit, but I don't think it's going to affect it too much though. But you notice here, as the GFS takes it on more of a separate track here, kind of skimming the northern part of South America, it doesn't really strengthen that much at all. Mostly it stays 1,000 or higher millibar low. It's not really, it doesn't get below 1,000 millibars at all, which could indicate more of a tropical depression, maybe even a weak tropical storm would be a possibility as well, if it were to sail on the south end track of the spectrum. So that's Witcher. Let's talk about uh, where we could locate any dry air, which this is right now. You got a lot of dry air kind of to the northwest, but where the storm is located, there's actually a lot of moisture where the storm is located. So it does not have dry air issues, at least for the moment. But if we do continue over the next couple of days, there will be some wind shear, or I meant dry air, kind of on the north side system, which may interrupt the system's intensification a little bit. But even with a little bit dry air just to the north of the system, there's still a lot of moisture within kind of the circulation of the system. And that's where we kind of care about the most, is if it could keep all that moisture within the center of circulation, because if it could do that, it can at least maintain its strength, and it could potentially still try to intensify. But once again here, even with that wind shear, it could try to interrupt it a little bit. So there's still some uncertainty here if it's going to intensify over the next several days. Which the possibility is still there, it could intensify here, but the possibility is But another possibility would be that it may not intensify at all over the next couple of days. So you still got those factors that kind of go into the system here. But whenever it gets into the Caribbean, it starts to lose a little bit of moisture, and there's still a little bit of dry air. Even out ahead of the system, there's still a little bit of dry air. So that's another thing to kind of keep an eye on, would be that. But let's talk about some other things, like ocean heat content, which of course this time of year, ocean heat content is not very high this time of year, so I don't expect to see impressive numbers. But even in the yellow colors, that's where you see that more favorable environment for tropical system development. And really, for most of its track here, it's going to kind of stay in the green here. So we're not really expecting to see rapid intensification from the system. That's something I'm not really expecting at all. But if it were to take a more northern track here, which you can see here in the northern part of the Caribbean, kind of towards Cuba, Puerto Rico, you got some higher ocean heat content values out there. If we were to take the southern track, like some of the models are suggesting, there's lower ocean heat content farther to the south, which will help limit intensification there. So you got a lot of that uncertainty that's going on out there, and a lot of those factors. But let's talk about sea surface temperatures. Really, for most of its travel here, even if it goes more on the south side, or the south track, there's still some pretty decent sea surface temperatures out there, and really above a 26 is what's considered favorable for tropical systems. And you can see here, really, if it takes a southern track or an northern track here, it'll still be in favorable sea surface temperatures, which is generally about 27 to 28 degrees Celsius. So it's definitely going to be very interesting to kind of track this system here. And I think kind of a slightly more accurate solution would be the European model. So let's kind of take a look to that. And we're actually going to start off with sustained winds here. So you can see here, here's our system right here. It's not right there, it's actually right here. And let's skip all the way to kind of into Sunday. So at around this point here, some of the stronger winds are on the northern part system, but at this point here, it's not very organized. So seeing winds up to 30 miles per hour. So it's kind of on the tropical pressure side at this point here. If you do look into rain and thunder, it does have some showers and thunderstorms surrounding the system. So around this point here, European model indicates this could be a tropical depression. Let's go back to sustained winds. Let's go ahead and move on to Monday. Okay, it strengthens just a little bit. On the north side here, still got winds that could be at least 30 miles per hour. Let's move on to Tuesday. So you can kind of notice here that the system is slowly strengthening. Not really, it's not rapidly intensifying or anything like that. Conditions are not really favorable for rapid intensification because of those lower ocean heat content values out there. But regardless of that, some slow strengthening will be possible with this system as well. And I think that'd be the more accurate way. You notice when it gets to the Caribbean, okay, now it's starting to get slightly better organized at this point. Now we're kind of getting into that tropical storm territory, which I know this is not a very high resolution model here, but I do believe at this point here, this could be a weak tropical storm. Let's move on to Thursday. Okay, now it's still continuing to strengthen here just a little bit here. 46 mile per hour sustained winds. And you can see here, even taking the southern track here on the southern part of the Caribbean, there can still be some intensification out there, but it's not like rapid intensification. If it were to take a more northern track here closer to Dominican Republic or Haiti or Jamaica, I think there could be some better intensification out there. That's where some of your better oceanic content values and warmer sea surface temperatures are. So it's going to be pretty important. So to make things a little bit more simpler, if it were to take the sever track, it could be a weaker system, maybe at best a low-end tropical storm. If it were to take the northern track, closer to Dominican Republic or Jamaica, it could be a stronger system, maybe a high-end tropical storm at best, maybe even a Category 1 hurricane. It's a little bit out there, but the possibility could be there. But the chances for a hurricane for right now is pretty low. At least at the moment, anyway. It's still pretty far out. We're towards the end of the run of the European model at this point here, so we're 9 days out. So it's going to be hard to say if this will be a hurricane or not this far out. But if it were to take the northern track here, it could be a stronger system regardless. So it's definitely something to watch it for now, which I know I'm going to get some questions in the comments. Will this affect the United States? We really don't know yet. But if you do not want a tropical system to impact the United States, you probably want to favor more on the southern track here. That decreases the chances anyway. Because you can see here towards the 10-day period here, kind of have some northern turn a little bit, but once again, that's 10 days out. That's likely going to change. But regardless, it is something to watch for now. But anyways, guys, that's all for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Guys, like this video, hit the like button. If you like my channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification so you never miss an upload. If you guys got any questions, put in the comment section down below. I answer you guys questions. I see you guys in the next video. Goodbye and have a good day.